Hi, my name is Molly Ring. I'm a teacher in St. Joseph, Missouri. I'm currently a master's candidate at the University of Kansas, and I'm seeking a master's in curriculum and instruction with an emphasis in TESOL. TESOL stands for Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages. This video will take you through part of my master's e-portfolio, which is the culminating project for our master's degree. Before we take a look at my portfolio, I'd like to tell you just a little bit more about myself. As I stated before, my name is Molly, and I live and teach in St. Joseph, Missouri, which is 1 hour north of Kansas City. I'm licensed in the state of Missouri to teach K through 12 art, and for the last 7 years I've been teaching high school art at a mid-sized high school of about 800 students in an urban setting. Since art's an elective course, I do teach 9th through 12th graders at my school, and I have the pleasure of covering all the three-dimensional content that we have in art at my school. So that encompasses ceramics and sculpture, and this is right in my wheelhouse because in my undergraduate studies I was a fibers major. There are a lot of things that I love about the school where I teach, and things that I find to be unique as well. But one of the things I love the most is that it's a very historic school, and I would also describe our school as a legacy school. Multiple generations of families have all gone to the high school where I teach, and that's a really special part of our school community that enriches our school culture. I've switched over my screen now. You should still be able to see me at the bottom because I'm going to take you on a personalized tour of my e-portfolio. But now you can also see the site that I've created. And as it states, Molly Ring Master's Portfolio. And this is what you'll see when you enter the site. I wanted to put something bold and visual because that really fits my aesthetic as an art teacher, and something that I find very important in the curriculum that I teach. And these 4 words really encompass to me what I focus on as a teacher, and that involves creating, educating, inspiring, and helping students to grow, and in turn growing myself as an educator. Pursuing my master's in TESOL really has been all about growth for me, and I feel like I have been able to improve my practice as a teacher. I've been able to greatly broaden my knowledge in a new area of education, and I'm looking forward to continuing to apply what I've learned and how I've grown as an educator in my practice with students. So the section of my portfolio that I have decided to take you on a tour through is housed here under the Knowledge and Skills tab. And that section is the state and national standards. So I clicked here, and now I'll tell you a little bit more about what you'll find on this page. I chose to highlight this section of my portfolio because of the artifacts that I chose to meet this CAPE standard. The CAPE standard that is discussed here is CAPE 1.3. Candidates apply content and discipline-specific knowledge as reflected in state and/or national discipline-specific standards. The first artifact that I chose has to do with my practicum experience, which, as I wrote here, was truly a humbling experience for me, and I would also say a major growth experience. And it became an experience I know that I will carry with me always, and I've actually maintained my relationship with my practicum site, and I'm still working on a monthly basis with those students. My background is in art education, so much of what I've studied as in my TESOL program has been brand new information to me. I don't have background in teaching language of any kind. So I would say there's been a learning curve in many different ways. But even more so, in starting at my practicum site, I was working with adult learners, and this was a new experience for me. So not only teaching English language learners, but also teaching adult learners. And it kind of gave me a little bit of a mid-teaching crisis. After teaching for 7 years, I feel pretty confident in my daily practice and my knowledge in my specific content area. And this kind of shook my confidence and changed the way I understand myself as a teacher. And in the end, I can definitely say changed that for the better. My practicum experience also gave me many aha moments where I was able to really build that connection between theory and practice. So taking what I'd spent so much time learning and writing about and reading about and actually applying that in a hands-on way in the classroom. So the CAPE standard that's being addressed here is CAPE 1.3, which reads, candidates apply content and discipline-specific knowledge as reflected in state and/or national discipline-specific standards. The first artifact that I chose to address CAPE 1.3 is from the practicum course that I've been discussing, and that artifact is the observation report. I chose the observation report as my first artifact for CAPE 1.3 because the use of state and national standards was an integral part of the development of this lesson for my practicum site. So that started first on with the standard for me as an educator, and that came from the KSD TESOL standard number 7, and it states, the teacher of English for speakers of other languages understands and uses a broad range of methodologies to provide academic learning experiences for English language learners, understands and uses strategies that encourage full participation of English language learners in the school environment, and understands the foundations of second language instruction. This standard helped me to better understand my role as an ESOL educator, and I also was able to identify the content that was most appropriate for use with my adult ELLs. And that content needed to be something that could be utilized as my adult learners are out navigating life and American systems while still learning the language. So to further identify what that content might be, I turn to the CASAS standards. CASAS stands for Comprehensive Adult Student Assessment Systems. So again, I really wanted to make sure that the content that I was developing my lessons around was relevant to the learners that I was teaching. So I'm going to go down here and click on Artifact 1 and show you a closer look of the observation report that I've been discussing. So this assignment was one of the culminating assignments of the CNT 825 course, practicum course. And what you see here is an overview that allowed my instructor to get a better understanding of my practicum site and some of the learning dynamics at play with my students, especially in terms of language proficiency. And the students I was working with are adult learners with a beginning proficiency level. So moving further into this assignment, it is a STY lesson plan, which stands for Specially Designed Academic Instruction in English. And what's unique about that is you're really going to see when looking at this format of, or for a lesson, that it separates out content knowledge from the language objectives that also will be taught as part of the lesson. So moving further down here, you see a breakdown of vocabulary. And often as a teacher, I think of vocab in terms of content. What new words need to be taught as part of the new material that I'm teaching? But for English language learners, support vocabulary is also essential, and that comes in the mode of academic vocabulary and cohesion words. What language supports are needed? What words need to be taught for students to be able to access the general content, okay? And the content of this lesson has to do with personal information. So again, I was really thinking about what do my students need to know as they are out navigating life in the U.S.? And things like being able to give your name, your full address, your date of birth. There are so many situations where that information is required. And not only that, but it's required in a certain format. So as part of this lesson, I not only taught that essential personal information, but I also taught students how to apply it. So how to answer questions that require personal information, how to do that verbally, how to do it in a written format, like a form that might be encountered at the doctor's office. And that's the content that I developed here. The second artifact that I've chosen here, I also found to be really essential in my personal development as an ESOL educator. And this came from CNT 821, which was the assessment course, Assessment in TESOL. And I left this course with a much deeper understanding of the 4 language domains. And those 4 language domains are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And what we had to do for this artifact that I've selected, which was the language assessment project, was create ways to assess students in those 4 separate language domains. Linking back to CAPE Standard 1.3, I worked very closely with standards to develop my materials for this language assessment project. And the standards that I used were the WIDA standards, which stands for World Class Instructional Design and Assessment, and also the Common Core standards, because these are the ones that seem to most apply to our Missouri ESOL curriculum. The WIDA standards were brand new to me, and I really had to do some learning to utilize those effectively, because I found that they were not especially specific, but instead really broken into 5 broad categories. So that's why I pulled in the Common Core standards to help further narrow down some of the particular language skills that are appropriate for high schoolers. 2 things that I really took away from the development of this artifact. The first was the ability to recognize bias, in this case in assessment materials, but also I'm able to more critically analyze the teaching materials that I'm selecting and where bias might be present. And then I really had no understanding of creating pure assessments where only where a single language domain is isolated and reliably assessed. So now I've clicked in here to the Artifact 2 tab to give you a better idea of what this language assessment final project looked like. And it is quite a lengthy document because 4 separate assessments had to be developed and then explained and reflected upon. So I have incorporated a table of contents here, which should make that a little bit easier to navigate. But I do want to just scroll down and talk about the essential parts of this. So this is just a broad overview and then describes the 4 assessments I created and links directly to those standards, both the WIDA standards and the Common Core standards that were utilized in the development of this project. Then scrolling down, I have each of the assessments broken up with the assessment materials that I developed incorporated here in this document. Here you are seeing the student answer sheet from the listening assessment. And what this assessment asked the student to do was listen to a statement, a directional statement. So statement 1 here, open your books, turn to page 46, and begin reading chapter 1. And then select the image that fit that instructional statement. Each assessment was also accompanied by a scoring guide to show how students were being assessed, and if this assessment was used by another instructor, it could be done in a reliable way following these materials. It's me again. Thank you for coming on a short tour of my portfolio with me. As I stated before, I'm really excited to move forward with this knowledge that I've gained through my master's program. And for the foreseeable future, I plan to apply that knowledge in my high school art classroom. And I sought this degree to be able to better serve all of the students that are in my care, including English language learners. And I hope to be able to do that much more effectively. Thanks so much.